adjustable lengths. So I won't demonstrate it. I only have one hand available, but you can see that you use this to change the length of the trapeze lines. We've got a new working section here. I use the ball system. My crew has always used the hook system. And the retrieval, the gobbler for the trapeze, runs through the hull as in all Nacra infusions. And there is oh, by the way, this adjustable system is on all 4 trap lines. And then in each position for helm and crew, we have a secondary backup trap line. Been a lot of races where the boat is flipped. We went around the front, busted our retrieval for the trapeze, and couldn't race. We had the trapeze line swinging around, hitting us in the face. So here is the secondary, the backup for the crew, and here is the backup for the helm. In case I didn't mention earlier, the Cunningham has a gobbler system inside the front crossbeam that was replaced this month, May 2020. Foot straps for regular downwind for helm and downwind for crew. This is a good quality galvanized trailer. I don't recall the brand. It's on the pink slip. So the thing that makes this trailer special is this front mast cradle. So you can see I cut it in half right here, and then we have a billet of aluminum that drops in there, and then I'm going to pause to untangle stuff. So I just installed the upper section of the mast column or cradle, whatever you want to call it. So each side is padded here because during transportation your spinnaker pole is going to be hanging from this red rope. So this red rope would go around the spinnaker pole, wrap around, I think there's a cleat somewhere, but it holds the spinnaker pole up. If you drop the spinnaker pole without support, there's a little pin over there at the crossbeam that'll bend. So before you take the mast down, disconnect the front forestay, you will suspend the spinnaker pole. You'll take the mast down. There's the turning block that connects down to the winch for stepping and de-stepping the mast. And then once the mast is up here and situated and all your lines are sort of sorted out, then this is a piece of 3/8 bungee cord. So there's a lot of stretch to that. And this goes up and wraps around. So all of your securing of the mast is on these 2 spars here. I called it a spar, but it's the mast, what I called the mast column. Now there's also a rear mast column, and I'm carrying that. It's right here. And this little outcropping here off on the back of the trailer, this keys into that pin, and then there's a secondary pin. I don't know if I don't think I got that on video. I think I was blundering. So this keys in here and then stands up and then pins. You have to move the boat forward a little during trailering to have this cradle stand completely up. But this thing sticks up past the rear crossbeam and allows you to rest the mast on the rear cradle. Oh, and this has as well a 3/8 bungee cord to secure the rear of the mast to this cradle. Trailer includes a spare tire. I don't know if there's any air in it. Feels like there's air in it. It looks kind of sketchy, but I think it's fine as a spare. The Pegasus added this monster aluminum box, and it's really nice. So you can fit all of your sailing stuff in there with the exception of the beach wheels. And it's probably, I would estimate 13 feet long. And it does not interfere with the launching of the boat. A lot of these cat boxes are too tall, and you end up having to lift the dolphin striker, or lift the boat so the dolphin striker will clear the box. That's not the case with this. Something you may have noticed in the previous video is this sleeve around the bottom of the mast. What happened was when shortly after I bought it from Philippe, the casting, a little tiny lip came off of this casting. There's a casting error built into all these infusions. If you imagine a mold, there's an A side and a B side to the mold, and it's a die cast kind of a situation. And there was a poor registration, so one side had a lip that the mast extrusion would rest on, and if that lip breaks, then it basically log splits the mast, and that's what happened. I had about 1.5 inches of opening in the side of the mast. So what I did was I cut the mast back to the point where there was no visible crack, and then out of a piece of billet aluminum, I CNC milled this plate, and then made sure everything matched the original length of the mast. So there's in terms of the geometries, lengths and all, there is no difference between this mast and a regular infusion mast, only other than the fact that it's now probably the strongest infusion mast base in existence because of this piece of billet aluminum. So it works great. There have been no troubles whatsoever. The other thing I did, which other people are wanting to copy now, is this. Let me see if I can focus that. There we go. I have in there a plain bearing that's like this, and then an aluminum thrust washer, and then there of course is the normal diamond wire adjusting bolt. So combine that with grease, and this is probably, I don't know if any other manufacturers have done this kind of a plain bearing setup for adjusting diamond wire tension, but if you've ever struggled with diamond wire adjusting, you will really appreciate how easy this is. You can be at a loose gauge setting of 40, and it's quite effortless. And by the way, the diamond wires were replaced last week. I found one strand of one of the wires had popped off, and so I didn't want to take any chance. When your diamond wires fail, it's an expensive mess. The daggerboard wells are basically an evolved thing. You've got your felt lining here. That little piece of felt looks like it's coming off. Needs to be glued. This is a kit you could buy with a compressor here and a piece of rubber. The rubber would in terms of its ability to hold the daggerboard in place going downwind, would vary, probably with the surface waxing of the daggerboards. I don't really recall what it was, but to give it a more consistent gripping ability, I put felt over it, and that has really worked well for a long time. Some of the problems with the boat, we've got some Philippe Kahn painted the boat with this all grip paint, which is really impressive. It's done very well over the years. But you can see there's a crack in the paint there. There's a crack in the paint right there. One right there. I don't know how well the camera is going to pick this up, but there was a dock at the San Francisco Yacht Club that had bolts sticking out where there should have been wood or rubber, and they put a couple of scratches in the hulls. That was a bad day. As I mentioned in my ad, the dock landing at Redwood City is pretty tricky, and some wind angles. So these bows are kind of typical for the F-18s that are at Redwood City. This other one has chips as well, and I think they actually leak. This boat, you get probably from sailing on the South Bay, which is pretty wet. you'll get somewhere around, it's hard to say. Let me show you. I've got Philippe Kahn turned me onto these natural sea sponges for sponging out the hulls. But when we come back in, we'll have probably 5 to 6 of these full of water, maybe more. So you put it in, you pull it out and squeeze it. I would estimate there's a pint of water in each sponge. So I believe the source of the water is very likely those bow cracks. I do not think it's the daggerboard wells. The reason I think that is because for the entire time I've owned the boat, I have hit one fish with a daggerboard, and it chipped up the trailing edge, and I had that replaced. But it didn't coincide with an increase in the water after sailing, the accumulated water in the hull. So I believe it's, and plus the water after sailing started to appear after the bow cracks, so, or the bow bumps on the dock. I think this is the stock Nacra Infusion hardware. It's the Staymaster adjusters. Got them on both sides. This is the underside of the trampoline. Looks like kind of a mess, but all of the gobblers were replaced this month, May 20. This is the trampoline. I forgot to talk about it. It's older. It's probably the delivery trampoline, if I'm not mistaken. But one thing that Pegasus did that I really like, and it saved my butt so many times on blown maneuvers, is these bolsters here. Without these bolsters, you just slide. If you've got a high heel angle and you weren't expecting it, and your feet are not under the foot straps, you're just going to slide across. These things stop you from sliding, and they do not get in the way whatsoever from normal operations. So the boat includes a brand new trampoline, and I've had it sitting there, able to use it forever, but I wouldn't trade this for a brand new trampoline. This is really nice. Going back to the trapeze lines, all four trapeze lines are new as of 2016. Kind of referring to my checklist here. So going back to a subject in the earlier video, these board lift lines are not one-to-one. So when you pull this, if you pull this line up 1 foot, you're going to get 6 inches of lift over there. So it's a 2-to-1, gives you a physical advantage. The boards are always going to be difficult to lift without some sort of roller bearing. And so what most people are doing nowadays, the racers are doing, is they have a 2-to-1 system under the boat, where, as I explained, you pull 1 foot and you get 6 inches up on the other side, and this gives you, it basically doubles your strength to pull the board up. Going back to the back of the boat, each side has a chicken line, so this is pretty nice. This has saved us quite a number of times when the bows dive in. And then there's, of course, a gobbler system that takes it all back in there. A key feature and benefit of this boat is the work that Pegasus Racing did on squaring the hulls and bedding them. So for those of you who don't know, bedding is a process where they mix a batch of epoxy, they'll put a release agent on the aluminum, and spread the epoxy into the bed. Now this is the bed that holds the cross beam. It's a bed that's in the hull, and that pocket, if you will. And then they put the beam in and bolt it down. They use reinforcing G10 load distributors, and made sure everything was aligned squarely, and drop the bed in. So now there's no racking. So what racking is if you're going over waves your leeward hull is in the water and your windward hull is out of the water, but with every wave you get twist in between the two cross beams. If you imagine it's loose, or if they were rubbery, the hull that's out of the water would bounce quite a bit relative to the other hull. So that makes everything sort of feel mushy. It's not good for the rig, so the rigging. So they bedded this thing, and this is the stiffest F-18 I've ever sailed.